Okay. Hi. Alright, so the download that I got was sensuality and animism go hand in hand. And I was trying to figure out like how to blend what I currently do, like pole art and talking about the intertwining of like self love and things of that nature with my legacy or just my actual spiritual intuition and what spirit is guiding me towards. And spirit has been guiding me towards prep for 2027. And I've been getting 2027 and 2032 as two numbers or 2 years that need to be paid very close attention to. Um, I just heard 2038 too. I don't know what that's about, but it's so many things that are shifting. Um, and human design will be leaving out of the I forgot what the current cross is called, but we'll be leaving out of that ankle cross and going into the cross of the sleeping phoenix in 2027. And essentially, we'll be moving out of services, contracts, and communal practices and into our inner authority and moving from self trust within spiritual trust. So, more than anything, I feel like what Spirit is calling me towards is bridging what the fuck I'm talking about to why it is so important. Why it is so important, like as a lifestyle, not as just some shit that you should just pick up. You know what I mean? Because self love, I feel like, is very unseriously marketed. And I hate to say marketed because it's not a product, it's a state to reach within. But capitalism has definitely monetized everything that can be reached, whatever the fuck, within. But nah, self-love and self-romance and self-care are all things that have been attached to consumerism and capitalism. So when we think of this new world or like this new order, we think of a world without capitalism and consumerism. And unfortunately, when those two things go out the window, we also think that our ability to sit in luxury, self romance, self care are all going to go with it. And that's just not the truth. So, a part of or not a part of, but self romance and self care, period, self love, period, is the basis of it is tapping into your sensuality. And tapping into your sensuality it doesn't bound you to having to explore sex, but it does bound you to having to explore what exchanges mean to you and the dynamics that you choose, that you gravitate towards within them. And so, okay, when we're thinking about sensuality, it's simply slowing down. It's simply embodying patience. It's simply sitting with yourself and giving yourself in your highest and source, in your spirits, your guides, the space to co-create. Um, it's giving yourself the space to be. It's giving yourself the space, more specifically, to be a human being without having to worry too heavy about the spiritual responsibilities. Because even as somebody that works heavily in the spirit, if you are like a spiritual practitioner or whatever have you, like if you are somebody that works strongly in the spirit, you still are not 100% responsible for what goes on. Primordiality and destiny are still things. They are still the basis of our existence, and we still need to follow the laws of the universe. Why? Because they are the primordial blueprint. The laws of the universe literally just explain to us what the universe, the boundaries of the universe, and what it is willing to tolerate and what it's not going to tolerate. And it's not personal to us, it's just what it is. um but that in itself, like, the fact that we have laws that we have to follow, that there are bounds that humans are given in order to be kept in check spiritually, it just shows that we are not meant to be doing this shit alone. And we look around every single day due to capitalism and consumerism, and we feel alone when we don't have a human being in our presence, because we don't see anything anymore as the spirit. So we don't know in what ways we think when we're being asked to review our exchanges during, or when we're exploring our sensuality, that we're being asked to explore only our physical exchanges with human beings. But what about our exchanges overall? I think we completely bypass the fact that we are energy and that everything made up around us is energy. In all aspects of life is energy. So, and this is where I really want to, like, this is where I'm going to introduce animism, um, which is the knowing or the practice of working with nature and all that is nature, and revering it as spirits. So a lot of the times, and this is definitely something that I've been developing more heavily this year in my spiritual practice. But if you hear me say spirits, talk to your spirits, I'm not just talking about your ancestors. And I'm not just, and when I say ancestors, I'm not just talking about your human ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I'm not just talking about humans. Okay? I'm talking about your primordial spirits that are attached to soul, your soul contract. Um and it goes very deep, but for the sake of this, that's like the basis of it. Like, everything is energy, everything is a spirit. So what I was saying before, when we look around capitalism, consumerism, every fucking thing to us is fake. And not fake, but we don't have a deeper concept of what spirituality really means, like what it really means to honor and revere the spirits, to really be in the spirit. And that's what 2027 to 2032 is going to be asking for us to deeply step into, because again, the shifts are shifting. But life, if you truly want to reach a level of sovereignty, of self-love, of self-romance, of truly giving a fuck about yourself, you have to connect to your higher source of energy, to your higher source of spirit. Um and you have to begin to see the spirit and feel the spirit and everything, because that is what will begin to shape your dynamics truly. Like, when you're unconsciously moving around in life, we see things as contracts and as exchanges, but we're not as, like, privy to how important and imperative it is that we're intentional with them, because we see it as, if I harm this human will have the ability to pick up the pieces, right? You're not thinking furthermore into, okay, well, if I eat this thing, this is causing me, this is going to do something to my body, whether it's good or bad. This is still an exchange, and this is still creating an unconscious contract, because we also know that food creates cravings. So once you have eaten something that either you like or you don't like, you now have a craving for it, which creates an unconscious contract. And you'll keep going until you realize that you are only eating specifically and solely off of that craving and not from your own personal desire. And self love, self care, and self romance. And I separate those things because self romance is the addition of self love and self care. Self love is healing your father wounds and what you need in order to maintain boundaries, to give yourself the space to flourish in your self worth. Self care is the healing of your mother wounds, or just overall giving yourself the space to flourish in your cyclicality, your emotional regulation, and giving yourself the space to be fluid in creativity and not having to overwork. That's what your self love protects, your ability to continuously take care of yourself. And when self care and self love are together and they in tandem, right, you get to this point of self romance where you're genuinely able to, at this point, you're ready to date. You're ready to date yourself, right? So we're looking into what ways we can put ourselves in external exchanges. Are we taking ourselves out on dates? Are we buying ourselves flowers? Are we like all of these things? But all of that comes down to the sensuality of being able to connect with everything around you and being able to intentionally think of the power of everything around you. When you go outside, and I don't fucking know, like, I don't think anybody would randomly just go outside and kick a tree. But that was the thought that just came to mind. Like, the vision of just somebody going to a tree and kicking that bitch with no remorse because they're genuinely angry, right? Not because they're going to the tree with love and reverence and saying, like, hey, tree, can we tussle a little bit so I can get some of this anger out? Can you take some of my anger? But you're literally just going to the tree. But do you see how I said have a conversation with it? But anyway, but you just go up to the tree and you just kick that bitch because you want to give it your anger. Like, you see things in exchanges as an opportunity to project versus an opportunity to experience, as a versus a portal that you can step into, versus a exchange that you can, like I said, experience. Like, there is no sacredness in spirit or energy anymore. And I don't care how crazy you think it may sound, you need to fucking start talking to your spirits. You need to start talking to your spirits. When you hear that random song in your head, you need to say love and reverence. Not because necessarily it's a spirit, but because the realm of thought itself is an energetic field. Pay love and reverence to it because it is an entity on its own. When you see that bird, or when you're asking for a new beginning, pay love and reverence to the spirits of destruction. Pay love and reverence to the spirits of starting anew, of starting over, because we may not know all of the energies that go into our day to day, but there are definitely energies that go into our day to day. And when we start to acknowledge those energies on a day to day, we start to consciously think about how we're being nourished in our dynamics. Because you'll notice that nature itself will always nourish you back somehow when you pay love and reverence. When you pay love and reverence to the spirits, it's always going to give you back what it is that you desire. So if you feel out of fulfillment in your spiritual practice and you talk to your spirits, blah, 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 it's because you may be receptive to talking to the spirits, but you're not receptive to the medicine that the spirits are willing to give you yet. Why? Because you're now not intentionally receiving. And that's also a part of self romance. That's also a part of sensuality. Animism deeply shows us that the only way that we can receive pleasure is to slow down and communicate and connect with honesty in the spirit. Literally, that's all it is. So if you can't slow down and receive, what level of self romance are you having? You know what I mean? And it's a different layer when you get to a point of emotional regulation from healing your mother wounds a little bit, and then having a sense of a little sense of self-worth from healing your father wounds a little bit, and then you get to self-romance and you're like, okay, I think I'm ready for this. And it's a whole new ballpark, because now you're up against time, trying to remind yourself that you don't have to worry about abandonment, fear, loss, death, or change anymore, because you are emotionally regulated enough and you love yourself enough to not only know when and where to put yourself at to be in situations that celebrate you and that are aligned with you, but you know when to get the fuck out. And you also know, if that happens, you also know that you're protected in the process. And I don't even know what I was saying with that, but having this race against time during self romance. Um, so yeah, when all those fears kick in, and you start to realize that you struggle to receive love or romance, period. You struggle to receive romance specifically because you're attaching it to the dynamic of overconsumption and loss. That is directly tied to how you feel about life and its spirit and animism overall. Because, like I said in the beginning, consumerism and capitalism has conditioned us to think that the things around us are not fucking real. They may be processed and have undergone a process of things, but everything that serves a purpose has a spiritual place, and everything serves a purpose. You know what I'm saying? Everything serves a purpose, or it wouldn't be here, negative or positive, because duality exists. So yeah, yeah, um, yeah. I think that's like all I really wanted to talk about, for real, for real. But yeah, tap into your spirits and stop being so shallow. Like, we struggle to realize also that, like, things are connected to nature. Like, the wind is connected to our breath, and like the rain is connected to our tears, or like the oceans or the bodies of water on the earth are connected to our tears, and things of that nature. Like, we have to start making connections of ourselves to life, into earth, into spirit, because we are truly made, quote unquote, in God's image. Not because there was some random man that said, I'm gonna make all of y'all look like me, which is a human, but because spirit and energetic source said, wow, I would love to experience myself. So I'm gonna create, or I'm gonna separate myself so that I can be masculine energy and feminine energy, and I can be a spirit and experience what that looks like to evolve in this process. That's why we're made in God's image, because we are the physical manifestation of the universe's spirits, whoever sources process of becoming. That is our purpose. That is our journeys. So, yeah, like, connecting to God is not just praying. Connecting to God is savoring every meal. It's going outside and without your phone and just sitting with the sun, or even at night, just going outside and sitting with the moon and the stars and the wind, the breeze, the night, sitting with the day, the air in the day, the insects and the birds and the bees and the trees and all the things that exist specifically and only exclusively to and throughout the day. Like, go outside and just sit in that and process that there are certain things that are only tied to certain aspects of life, and how beautiful it is that those things uphold you, and how they're always there for you to fall back onto. And even if you can't, they're always shifting because they're natural resources of life. Just, yeah. And even like if you partake in like smoking, right? Or even if like you use like incense, or you love candles, or working with fire, start to see that as breath and as life, as initiating energy, as the spark that creates, start to acknowledge the elements for what they are, for what they do. And you'll see that life will actually start to become sweeter. Not because things become easier, because it doesn't become easier. It becomes more intentional, and you get exactly what the fuck you want when things are intentional. And not only do I want us to have exactly what we want by 2027, but I want us to be flourishing and sovereign by 2027, and definitely by fucking 2032. So yeah, have a conversation with your spirits. If you don't know, and when I say with your spirits, I mean towards the entities that you're called towards. Like me, for example. And this is a very random example for myself, but I love lavender. I've been called to lavender for my entire life pretty much. And lavender is an herb, it's a flower. And it's a spirit. Lavender is one of my rest spirits. It's one of my regulatory spirits that I sit with physically, so I use essential oils, I'll use sprays, I'll use incense, whatever, candles, whatever, and sit with and bask in its energy. Or I'll actually you can call on the energy of lavender, of rest, of peace, of support when it comes to the matters of the heart, and slowing down and sleeping and resting, calming the fuck down, taking a fucking chill pill. Sometimes all you just need is resonating energies to come in and share with you what it is that they offer. It's not always the grandiosities of spiritual things or miracles that are happening that make motherfuckers go oh, I have spirits. These are my spirits that are talking to me and are working with me and all of these things, spirituality becomes so fake when we go out of our way to make it real. Making spirituality real is simply putting ourselves in the position where we know that we do truly co-create our reality. And because we truly co-create our reality, in order for us to stay within the bounds of healthy co-creation, we need to move in the laws of the universe, and we need to work with the spirits that be. The reality in spirituality is not grandiosities, which that is definitely a thing in spirituality, miracles and grandiosities, things that happen, very big, very unexpected in the spirit. That's real. But that's not what us being in practicing our spirituality is. It's sitting with the mundane things, the human things, the day-to-day, daily rituals and routines, and finding the spiritual aspects in God and the medicine in those things. Truly and wholeheartedly. There's no way that you think that you're going to get to the highest point of your life without being able to look around and love where you're at right now. And loving where you're at doesn't mean being content with it to the point where you want to stay there. It just means that you're in reverence and love and connection with everything and everywhere that you go until you are no longer in that space. And that's also what takes you out of a space of fearing death and loss and etc. to get you to that threshold of being able to romance yourself when you release the need to make things feel real, you know? So yeah, I don't want to yap too further, but yeah, that's the tea. What we finna do? I'm